Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to the JeepSolid Garage. Today is a super exciting day. We are finally done, officially done with the 4.0 rebuild. We're going to drop this engine back into my Project 1992 YJ. I've got the engine compartment cleaned up. Everything's ready to go to install that, so let's get to it. All right, let's lift this engine up and get it out of the way, because the very first thing I gotta do, I gotta remove this tire. Yes, it is on the engine stand backwards. Normally you would have the fan up here, the clutch down on that side, so you could slide it in from the front. But with the setup I don't have enough room in front of my Jeep, so I have to bring it around from the side. So I gotta take this tire off so I can swing this thing in and around the fender there. You'll see how it works out pretty good. So let's get to it. All right, before we get this guy in there too far, let's talk engine mounts. Now, as you can see, I've got the mounting brackets on there, passenger side, driver's side brackets. I got the engine mounts themselves are gone. Got rid of those old broken down ones that need to be replaced. And I've got an excellent set of replacements here from Brown Dog. And they gave me these for this project to do an installation and review video on. So now these are the Ultraflex standard mounts from Brown Dog. They have excellent reputation. I'll be sure to link these exact mounts in the description below. Now a lot of guys, they get one thing wrong. You only need a standard mount, even if you have a lift. Up to 4.5 inches of lift, you just want a standard mount, unless you're trying to correct a driveline angle, which you need to be talking to Brown Dog about that. Give them a call, ask them what you can do. You do not need a motor mount lift on your Jeep until you get 4.5 inches and above lift on your Jeep. So this has like 2.5 inches of lift on it, so these standard mounts would be just perfect. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm not going to put these mounts in the engine compartment yet, or on the engine itself, until I get this thing hooked up to the transmission housing there. You need just a little bit of extra room so you can kind of move the engine around and get it into place. And the other thing, if you have these mounts in on the mounting points in there, your engine, you're not going to be able to drop it right down onto it. The engine actually needs to go forward and up a little bit. So it just doesn't work out well. So leave these off until you get the engine bolted up to the transmission, the bell housing there. Then you can go ahead and install these. It's looking pretty good. I've got the engine about where I want it right now. I got to get under there and jack up the transmission a little bit to line it up with the engine before we can get them mated up there. And yeah, this is the part where having a helper would really help out. Just getting everything lined up. I was just checking the The output shaft here, make sure I've got it in neutral so I can spin this. Let me show you. Or I guess this would actually be the input to the transmission. So this turns freely. Want to get it lined up with the crank through the clutch there, and we'll be all set. And we're double checking that we don't have any wires or anything caught. The last thing we want to do is get something mashed behind the engine. All right, I finally got these 2 bolts in on the side of the engine. I actually used the ones I was using on my engine mount. They were a little bit longer, just to help kind of pull it in together. So I'll swap those out for these guys in a bit. But man, just so much of up and down, in and out, changing the angles, getting the transmission and engine lined up. And that side, I was having a really hard time getting the bolt in, and finally I got the transmission in just the right position to slide it in. So the moral of that is, if your bolt's not going in, if it's just not threading right, change your angles, keep playing with it until you find the right spot. So let's get these last bolts in here. This angled socket wrench is a lifesaver. That little guy there. I'll link it in the description below, but it makes all the difference in the world. Okay, now that I've got everything lined up, the engine is tightly against the bell housing. Get these last little screws in here. Now I've got these two guys that go on the side. I'm going to get a little blue thread locker on them and swap them out. They went right down here. I used those longer ones that I used on my engine stand to just kind of help pull everything in together. So I'm going to swap those out for these guys here. And the torque specs for these guys are 55, 43, and 27 foot-pounds. So let's take care of that. All right, let's move on to our engine mounts. Now we're going to start out by installing the driver's side first, and we're just going to get this in there loosely. Get all the bolts finger tight. And of course we have the 3 bolts under our skid plate that go to the transmission mount. Those are all off, giving the transmission room to move, as we're moving the engine around here. So I've got this guy ready. Let's jack it up a little bit so we can slide this guy in place. All right, got the driver's side started pretty well, so let's get the passenger side installed now. We'll just get it finger tight as well, because we still need to have a little bit of movement. So All right, looks great. Got those guys all tightened down good. Those are good looking mounts. All right, that looks great. So I'll be sure to include a link to these Brown Dog motor mounts in the description below, along with some of my other favorite tools. Thanks for watching.